Austria is facing one of the most serious political crises in modern history. After the parliamentary election in September 2024, the country has struggled to form a stable government. Months have passed, but Austria still has no clear leadership. In this video, we are going to break down the government crisis step by step, analyzing the key events, political decisions and their consequences, so you can understand what is happening in Austria. But how did we get here? What led to this deadlock? And what does it mean for Austria's political future? We will take a closer look at the key events that unfolded after the election, that failed coalition talks and the political chaos that followed. To understand this crisis, we need to go back to the Austrian parliamentary election on September 29, 2024. The election result were a political earthquake. The far-right Freedom Party of Austria, or FPÖ, won 28.8% of the votes, becoming the strongest party in the parliament for the first time in history. The center-right Austrian People's Party, OVP, came second with 26%, while the Social Democrat Party of Austria, SPO, fell in third place with 21%. Smaller parties like the liberal NEOS and the Green Party secured 9.5% and 8.2%. With this result, FPÖ leader Herbert Kickl had a strong mandate to form a government. However, the road to power was not easy. Despite being the largest party, the FPÖ lacked an absolute majority and needed a coalition partner to govern. Austria's other major parties were hesitant to form a coalition with the FPÖ due to its hardline stance on immigration and its controversial ties to far-right movements in Europe. Given this political deadlock, Austria's President Alexander van der Bellen decided to give the OVP the task to form a government, but this was not going to be easy. Together, the OVP and the SPO only had a fragile majority of just one seat, far from the stability needed to govern effectively. To secure a stable government, the OVP and SPO decided to include the liberals, NEOS, in their coalition talks. However, this new three-party alliance faced another major challenge: deep ideological differences. The election promises of these three parties differed massively. From the very beginning, talks were anything but smooth. The three parties had fundamental disagreements on major policy areas, such as tax policies. The OVP wanted tax cuts for businesses, while the SPO pushed for higher taxes on the wealthy. Another area were welfare and social programs. The SPO demanded stronger social security, which the NEOS opposed, calling for a more market-oriented approach. Another critical point was education economy. NEOS wanted major educational reforms and pro-business policies, while the SPO focused strongly on worker rights and social equality. As the negotiation continued, internal party tensions also grew. Hardliners in both the OVP and SPO opposed compromising too much with their coalition partner. Some OVP members were skeptical about working with the SPO. On January 3, 2025, the NEOS leadership announced that they were pulling out of the coalition talks. They argued that in a government like this, no real reforms would be possible, as the ideological gaps between these parties were too great to implement meaningful policy changes. This decision left the negotiation in crisis. With the withdrawal of the NEOS, the OVP and SPO were left with a fragile one-seat majority. The pressure on Chancellor Nehammer was mounting. And on January 4, 2025, Karl Nehammer announced that he would step back as Chancellor of Austria and the leader of the Austrian People's Party.
Chancellor Karl Nehammer has said he'll resign in the coming days after talks on forming a new government failed for a second time. Nehammer said destructive forces in the Social Democrats had gained the upper hand and that his People's Party wouldn't agree to policies that harm the economy.
In his statement, Nehammer acknowledged the failure to form a stable government and admitted that continuing under these circumstances would be irresponsible and unsustainable. After the resignation of Chancellor Karl Nehammer, the responsibility to break the deadlock fell on President Alexander van der Bellen. And on January 6, 2025, President van der Bellen made a historic decision. He officially tasked the Freedom Party, FPÖ, with forming a government. For the first time in Austrian history, the far-right FPÖ had the chance to lead the country. The FPÖ leader called this a victory for democracy, stating that as the largest party in the parliament, it was the right to govern. But not everyone saw it this way. The decision was met with mixed reactions across Austria. Supporters of the FPÖ celebrated, while critics including members of the SPO and NEOS, warned that an FPO-led government could push Austria into political isolation in the European Union. Some political analysts pointed out that van der Bellen, a former Green Party member, had long been critical of the FPO. However, as a president, he was obligated to respect the election result and give the largest party his first chance to form a government. With the mandate to form a government, Herbert Kickl and the FPO began searching for a coalition partner. The most logical option was the Austrian Freedoms Party, OVP, the second largest party in the parliament. A coalition between the FPO and the OVP would have secured a comfortable majority, making it the most stable option for governing Austria. As the coalition talks dragged on, it became clear that the differences between the FPO and the OVP were too deep to overcome. While both parties agreed on forming a stable government, they clashed on key policies, especially regarding Austria's position in Europe, foreign relationships, and control over critical ministries. One of the biggest points of contention was Austria's foreign policy and its relationship with the European Union. The FPO demanded that Austria pushes for an end to EU accession talks with Ukraine, arguing that Ukraine's membership would harm Austrian and European economic stability. They also proposed banning EU flags from government buildings and demanding to end the sanctions on Russia, in which all points the OVP refused to compromise, making it nearly impossible to find common ground. But the disagreements didn't stop at foreign policies. The most heated battle was over the distribution of key ministries, particularly the Interior and Finance Ministry, two of the most powerful government positions. The FPO insisted on controlling the Interior Ministry, which oversees Austria's police and intelligence services. They argued that this was crucial for implementing their strict immigration and security policy. However, the OVP feared that the FPO-controlled Interior Ministry could damage Austria's international intelligence partnership and create instability within the security system. Both parties also wanted control over the Finance Ministry. The FPO saw it as essential for pushing through their tax cuts and nationalistic economic policies, while the OVP viewed it as a safeguard against radical financial shifts that could destabilize Austria's economy. After weeks of negotiation, the OVP made a proposal regarding the distribution of ministries, but the FPO rejected it. In response, the FPO presented a counter-proposal, which was then refused by the OVP. As neither side's willing to compromise, the coalition talks officially collapsed on February 12, 2025. Herbert Kickl blamed the OVP for obstructing change, claiming they were not willing to negotiate on equal terms. Meanwhile, the OVP officially stated that the FPO's demands were too extreme and would have put Austria's stability at risk. With yet another failed attempt to form a government, Austria was once again left in political limbo. For the first time in modern history, months have passed since the election, yet the country remains without functioning government. With the collapse of the coalition talks, Austria facing a deep political crisis. So, what happens now? Since the September 2024 election, Austria has been governed by a caretaker government with limited power. While the day-to-day operations continue, major political decisions remain on hold. For example, the budget decision for 2025. Without a new government, Austria can't pass a national budget for 2025, delaying key economic plans and public spending. Also, the public frustration is rising. As time passes, pressure is building up. Austrian citizens are demanding a solution. No clear government in place, Austria has four possible paths forward. Option 1. A minority government. One possibility is forming a minority government where a single party governs without an absolute majority, relying on support from opposition members to pass laws. However, this would create an unstable administration that could collapse at any time. Option 2. A technocratic government. Another option is a technocratic government, where independent experts or non-partisan figures take temporary control until the crisis is resolved. While this has worked in other countries, it remains controversial in Austria, as some view it as undemocratic. Option number 3. A new coalition attempt. A third option would be a new round of coalition negotiation, possible with different party leaders or a broader compromise between multiple parties. Option number 4. New elections. The final and most drastic option is calling for new elections. This would give voters a chance to reshape the political landscape, but it would also mean another long campaign period, delaying Austria's ability to form a government even further. The decision now lies with President Alexander van der Bellen. Will he push for a compromise solution, or will Austria head back to the polls? Austria has now gone more than 4 months without a stable government. The failed coalition talks, the political deadlock and the deep division between parties have created one of the most significant crises in Austria's modern history. But is there finally a way forward? Recently there have been reports that new coalition talks between OVP, SPO and others could soon take place. Political leaders, under growing pressure, may be forced to come back to the table and attempt another round of negotiations. What do you think? Which option should happen next? Should Austria attempt another coalition? Should there be a technocratic government? Or is a new election the only result? Let us know in the comments below. What is the best way forward for Austria? One thing is certain. Austria stands at the crossroads. Who will lead Austria in the future? If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, share and subscribe for more analytics on global political events. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think should happen next in Austria? With that being said, see you in the next one.